Yo, what's up, everyone? It's your boy Jack Oates. To go, you either know or you don't. It's been a while since I've had the chance to give you guys an offline video, so I have to roll the intro before we talk about this snake in the grass, or possibly fox in the grass. I don't know. Roll it!
I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Pull up, say what's the deal, bruh? See how I lose my cool any second if they don't hear us. Many people will fear us. Say when you look in the mirror, don't you compare us to anything, they get embarrassed. Ha, ha, woo. So many people be talking like they want the problems or something. I noticed that all of you polish and all of you people get punished. It's hard to keep food on your stomach, to all of the hustle keep running. That's hard to stay humble with nothing. We're off of the jungle, we're bugging. So let me come down all of a sudden. I told you that we keep it buzzing. Ha, woo. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out.
One of the first things people said when we met Ryu is that he was going to turn out evil, and I had been vehemently against the idea. Not because it wasn't ever a possibility, but because readers tend to have this habit of jumping to conclusions with no basis whatsoever. As most of you should know, I operate off of evidence and facts, both implied and direct. Now that we have received quite a bit of information about Hino and the fate of the Yami clan, there are now signs that may point to Ryu, or at least an aspect of him, to be, in fact, evil. As this theory stands, it may be more accurate to say that he is another chaotic good character, somewhat like Lucius. But let's talk about what we know. In the last chapter, Ural summoned the Boogeyman with his beast magic to combat Kazukaku and Ichika. Through the Boogeyman, Ichika's fear manifested as her father, but this seems to have unintentionally unlocked some repressed memories from the night her clan was slaughtered. Ichika finds out that it was not Yami who slaughtered their clan, but it was her. Just as a side note, I refuse to refer to Yami as Tsukihiro, so you're just gonna have to deal with that. Anyway, there are a few things that I want to bring to your attention to really start creating a frame to the portrait that depicts a much darker and sadder story behind the truth of the Yami clan massacre. We see through the memories of Ichika that her father had forced Yami to take a demon soul pill that is said to unleash the latent potential and bloodlust of the person ingesting the drug. The dad forces it upon Yami and forces it upon Ichika. At face value, we can attribute the demon soul pill as to why Ichika was driven to murder her clan, but if we really look into this, we may see something a bit different. A little while back, Wizard King Minato, go follow him, had brought up the thought about Yami's sword or component of his being as to being the sword Masamune. Now, Masamune is a sword that is said to be the most superior katana made due to the fact that it is able to decide what it wants to cut. Along with Masamune, there was another sword, and this sword was called Muramasa. In the legend of these swords, two swordsmen decided to place their swords in a flowing stream to determine which of the swords was the better one. When they left it standing in the stream, Muramasa would cut everything that it touched. One of the most specific points of reference was when a leaf flowed into the sword and the sword cut it. Masamune, on the other hand, had a similar opportunity to slice a leaf, but the leaf simply rolled off the blade. Muramasa proclaimed that his sword was superior since it cut everything that came across it, but a third party disagreed. He realized that Masamune exhibited a much more honorable trait of discerning what it wants to cut and deemed Masamune the superior sword. Let's relate this legend to Black Clover. Originally, the idea was that the katana that Yami wielded had this attribute of only cutting things it did not want to protect, and that carried on into Asta's Infinity Slash. But we have to remember that the katana that Asta has is not an original sword from Hino, but a second replacement made within the Four Kingdoms, so this trait may be an innate ability within Yami that is translated through the use of a sword regardless of who made it. This kind of goes back to the soul sword theory I put out a little while back when we first landed in Hino. Asta is clearly able to tap into some other aspect of these swords, as we see his Devil Union form changes every time he grabs a sword, so the Infinity Slash would be him channeling the spirit of Yami through the katana, resulting in a spell that only cuts what Asta wants to protect. But we can't have Masamune without Muramasa, the sword that cuts everything. Looking at the massacre, we see that both Ichika and Yami take the Demon Soul Pill, but only Ichika suffered from massively adverse effects that caused her to lose control and slaughter her family. But that may not be what happened at all. What if I told you that Ichika did kill her family, but it was not her fault at all, but instead a combination of her father's fault mixed with Ryu's? Here's where things will start to look insane. We know now that Yami has the heart of a devil, and this flashback explains why that may be the case. If this drug that is supposed to heighten your magical prowess via its connection to devils, then it makes sense as to why his heart would not be a normal one. Many attribute this to the advent of Clipot, but not once has it been mentioned that William suffered the same effects, so it is reasonable to say that Yami was like this before the Advent, and it was only heightened because of the first seal of the underworld being opened, much like how the Triad was able to reach 100% of their access potential when the first gate had opened. If Yami's heart was already like that due to the Demon Soul Pill, then we have to assume Ichika has a heart just like his. Now, with both siblings having taken the drug, we see that Yami shows signs of illness, but he's not driven to insanity. Something we can't say for Ichika. So why is this the case? This is because Ichika was being manipulated by Ryu through his magical attribute. But how? Let's go through the facts. We know that Ryu was initially introduced as a man with no magic like Asta, but he was actually someone who was supposed to have had the greatest amount of magic due to his familial background, as his family are the ones who ran the islands of Hino, while the Yami clan protected the islands with their ferocity in battle. Somewhere along the way he loses his magic and an eye along with it. But regardless of having those facts, not one person among the new cast has ever talked about what Ryu's magic attribute was, or is. This may be because there is no real way for Ryu to showcase his attribute directly in battle, but is a bit more subtle and a lot like something we are seeing now with Lucius. See, in my last few streams we have talked about the power of yin and yang magic, which was a magic prevalent in Japan's history. It is called Onmyodo. The users of this magic are called Onmyoji. I've already talked a lot about this in those streams, so I will refrain from rehashing these details, but we only need one detail from this, and that's the fact that Onmyoji are capable of controlling Shikigami. Shikigami are conjured beings that are made alive through complex conjuring ceremonies. Their power is connected to the spiritual force of their master, where if the invoker is well introduced and has much experience, their Shiki can possess animals and even people and manipulate them. But if the invoker is careless, the Shikigami may get out of control in time, gaining its own will and consciousness, and can even raid its own master and kill them in revenge. Usually Shikigami are conjured to exercise risky orders for their masters, things such as spying, stealing, and enemy tracking. Right now they are fighting paladins in the Gozuryu from Hino's legend, and all of them are motivated solely because Ryu said he believed in them. This may seem like a nice sentiment, but with some evidence we will see this become a very manipulative and malevolent tactic. It is right here where I will pause it. that Ryu's magic attribute is a form of devil manipulation. From this moment on, all I ask is that you hear me out. Hino was ruled by the Ryudo clan, and was protected by the Kijin of the Yami clan. One of the first flashbacks we get is of Yami's father proclaiming that Yami would have even greater potential than the son of the Ryudo clan. This tells us that there is a plan to take over the rulership of Hino. This is a problem. Those in power will always wish to stay in power. Why have the Yami clan stayed subservient to the Ryudo clan for so long when it seems they have ways to boost their already powerful strength? It's because the head of the Kijin may have been controlled by the Ryudo clan due to them having taken the demon soul pill, turning their hearts into that of a devil. With the Yami clan, most namely Ichika's father, becoming more and more restless and hungry for power and war, the clan needed to be stopped. With this, Ryu had taken the opportunity to slay the clan by manipulating Ichika. Ichika was chosen over Yami because Yami has the spirit of Masamune, the sword who cuts only the things it does not wish to protect. Yami, in this case, would be a useless pawn for someone who can control devils, as we wouldn't successfully be able to cut anyone down. The next and best target for this manipulation is now Ichika, who would have the sword spirit of Muramasa, who will cut anything in its path. Now with the perfect pawn, Ryu is able to slaughter the entire clan by manipulating Ichika because of her new devil heart. This plays into his hand because now there will be no one who would oppose the Ryudo clan and their reign. Even better, he now has a weapon at his disposal who's able to cut down anyone in her path should he wish it. Not only this, but should she remember any of the events from that night, she would only remember that the slaughter was by her hand and not Yami's, but would never know that she was being manipulated and not just under the influence of this esoteric drug passed down for generations. After the slaughter, we do see Ryu tell Yami that they can't tell Ichika the truth of the events of that night, and we have a scene set up for when Ichika opens her eyes and sees Yami standing amongst the bodies of their slain clan, left to infer that he had been the one to do it. It's now the perfect crime. At some point between this scene and Yami leaving the country, Yami tells Ryu to never lay a hand on Ichika, and though he has the sword spirit of Masamune that will not cut things it wants to protect, he sends a dark slash at Ryu that manages to cut his eye, thus sending the message that he can and will end Ryu should Ichika be harmed. It is a lot, but there are still a few instances that make Ryu look suspect, and one of those moments is when he intervened with what would have been the final blow between Ichika and Asta. This may have originally looked like Ryu was just trying to stop it from going too far, but with all that I've said, this now looks like something else. Remember back when Julius had summoned Asta to the dungeon after the Third Eye attacked the capital, and they had captured Catherine and another member of the Eye of the Midnight Sun. Their minds had been sealed so that a mage like Marx would be incapable of bypassing the seals to extract information about their operation. Asta was then used to dispel the magic so that Marx could delve into their minds. Just a small touch from the hilt of his sword was able to undo some otherwise absolute magic. Now let's take into account that in the fight against Ichika, he was using the katana passed to him from Yami, which he would be able to tap into the spirit of Masamune, where even if he was able to let off an attack, there's a very high chance that it would have never physically harmed Ichika, because at the end of the day, that is his captain's sister. She is a part of Asta's family, regardless of her feelings towards him. But let's say the attack was successful. The slash would phase through Ichika and undo whatever effect that Ryu has on Ichika, causing her to understand that she was being manipulated up until this point in time, and that Ryu is an enemy. This would look a lot like when Asta had cut through Nox's arm to dispel the gravity that was causing it to break, as well as dispelling his own shadow magic on that arm. Think about how Tabata has written his series so far. Wouldn't it be just like him to have Ichika be worried about harming Ryu in any way when it was him who had harmed her the most? This gives us a dichotomy between antagonists within the current story now. Lucius, who is able to manipulate paladins through the power of a devil, and Ryu, who would be able to manipulate devils and those with their likeness with his magic. A battle of good and evil, both for their own idea of what they think is right. The entire series, the theme has been that no human can be trusted, especially if they have more power than normal. But neither side can control Asta due to him having anti-magic to shield him from any type of manipulation, well, aside from blood. So he must be used as a tool, or he must be disposed of. But with all this presented to you, I do want to leave you on one note. Ryu is innocent. Okay, now why did you sit through this whole video for this long just to hear that Ryu is innocent? Well, because there's a possibility that there are two Ryus. Not exactly in the same fashion that we see Julius and Lucius, but very similar. Remember that almost every time we have seen Ryu, a full moon is shown above his head, and the only time we see him in the same panel as the sun is when he initially found Asta, and it may have everything to do with the first Zeton that was said to split the sky. The Zeton that may have created two realms, one realm of night and a realm of day. There is lore to suggest why that is, but we will talk about that in the next stream. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you in the next video. This has been Jack Oates' GOAT. You either know or you don't.